Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap. We take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today, if anything, and what does it tell us about tomorrow. I do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Folks, it was a nothing day. It was comatose. I mean, absolutely no volume, no movement. I think the S&P's had about a 5-point range. You know, if we pull in here and look at it, Dow was up 21. I mean, nothing moved more than 1.14%. I mean, that's how tight it was. You had a little bit of selling in some of the metals, but for the most part, nothing moved. We had the dollar pull back a little bit. That was expected. We saw bonds come down, and they should try to turn here. A few of the things that we were looking at last night starting to take place, but for the most part, you know, it was a nothing day. It was Veterans Day, and that part of it, right, is that you know, is expected light volume today. And tomorrow will be the day, you know, where we find out, you know, if something's going to happen or not. And what I mean by something's going to happen, you know, if we pull these charts up, S&P's hanging right at the top again. All right, this is set up to try to break out. You got resistance right at the highs, and you can kind of see it up there. It's pretty tight. You got to really, you know, look close, but it's right there. Right, you've got the support down here now. You had this takeaway bar, and now you're just hanging there. Right. Everything's just hanging, and that's true on just about everything I looked at as I got ready to come on here tonight. So nothing there. If I look at the Dow actually went up and is pushing up at those highs again. That's pressing and trying to get over that high. That high was 15,797.68. We got the 15,791. We closed at 83. So again, spitting distance, no volume. Where we're waiting on some sort of a decision, of course, is the divergence that exists. Right? You got the Dow, you got the S&Ps up at the highs, and as we pointed out last night, you know, it's a different picture when you go look at the other indexes. Lower highs here, lower highs there, right? You're going lower, lower. Now you're coming back up, and as you're coming back up, volume's tailing off. Of course, today was a light day anyway, and as you're coming back up, you're right into that resistance zone. And that's true here. It's true on the NDX itself, which is even, actually the NDX is even clearer, because on the NDX, that resistance line is set right at where price is. It actually went into it today. It's right at the bottom of this resistance zone that you see up here, the red. It went right into it, turned around, did a doji. You know, typically a doji says you potentially can get a turn on the next day. But you know, in this market, a turn to the downside is like almost impossible, it seems. Here on the Russell, we talked about this last night. Here is where you could actually see the divergence most clearly. Right, you had the highs, you never even got close to those highs, whereas the S&P got all the way back up here. This one can't get even close, and now you're right at resistance. And that resistance is right at where? It's right at where you would expect it. It's right there on the resistance zone. You got a bar there, and you got the tops there, and it's right in it, and it can't get over it. Declining volume, so forth. All looks the same. I don't think we're going to see anything tonight that's really going to tell us much with respect to these markets and what they're going to do next. It's no different than what we saw last night. And if I pop over, let me just pop over. I'm going to quickly look at the sectors. In particular, let's look at the XLF and some of the others that we looked at last night when we were looking for some sort of clues outside of the indexes themselves. So I'm going to pop in the ones that were interesting and see if there's anything there. XLF, nothing. Doji, right at the top. So that one doesn't say a thing. How about the XLE? Same thing. They're all probably going to show dojis. XLY was trying to come off a little bit. That one also a doji. I think we're going to see dojis across everything here. And I guess we'll just quickly glance through them. Now the XLV pushed up. That one was wanting to push up to test the highs. Let's see if the XLP pushed a little bit more. No, the XLP couldn't go anywhere. Technology, XLK, and the semis. So XLK actually did okay pushing up, and the semis, nothing there, although some volume came in. IYT, the transports, back up there testing that area. The transports want to test back into that zone, even though we don't have a resistance zone up there. It wants to test back in, actually into this bar. The top is 126.32, and we're almost there. All right, so it'll test it tomorrow. XLB had a big turn yesterday and actually carried through a little bit today, so that's not bad either. Nothing here though. Nothing here. Let's quickly look at Ox markets, and then we'll probably flip overseas and see what they look like. There's a lot more happening over there than it is here. So let's see. Let's start with the euro and the dollar. Euro was expected to bounce as it came in here. Remember yesterday we were looking at this, and essentially we had a failure coming into this bar right in the zone, and that was the failure there. It flipped around. Volume was lighter. Now we bounce back up. Of course, now we're going to bounce back up, and we're going to test into potentially these swing point lows, and that would be where I think, or I would expect this to have trouble on the bounce, and then it's about halfway there already. Let's see if dollar looks the same, given that it's the FXE's 50% of it. Yeah, see, the dollar wants to do exactly the opposite. It wants to come in and test the swing point highs, and so you have kind of the same situation, except for this one's coming back to do this test. Now that test can run deeper, right? It can run all the way to the bottom. It can come all the way back down to here, but I don't think it's going to get that far. It's probably going to come into here. Just look at your volume flows. Any kind of spikes, that's where you're getting volume. If I pull it over so we can see, yeah, it's just nothing there. This thing's going to try to pull back a little bit and then bounce again. Okay, let's go look at gold and silver. I don't think that these markets were comatose as well. Yeah, it didn't do a thing. I expect silver probably shows the same. The only thing that really showed anything today that did what really probably should have happened was we actually saw the dollar bounce, or not bounce, but the FXE bounce. The dollar pulled back, and we saw the bonds try to flip around, or actually test into an area where they should flip around. Yeah, silver looks the same. Here's the bonds. The bonds to me look like they've come back as far as they're probably going to come back. I didn't do that ABCD structure. Let me see. This top was 20, 80, 21, 80, 01. So really the measurement is from up here. So we got 108.73. So it's about 360. That takes you to 103, 102.40. We're at 102.96. And this bottom over here is 102.74. Yeah, so this measurement here, you know, if we look at the ABCD structure, you go from here to the B point, the C point's there, and then you follow down, and that takes you right down into this area. It's actually below these two big bars, right, which is those two. It came into this one today. You know, your volume is nothing today. compared to this bar, right? So I expect you're going to get some sort of a bounce out of here, probably come back into the swing point low area for retest regen, which is also the gap area, fail, and then go back down and finish off this ABCD structure on the way down. It kind of looks like that's the way that one's setting up. Let's flip overseas and see what's going on overseas, because I haven't looked at it lately. I didn't have time last night. The weekly show is too packed anymore. There's not enough time. But we definitely got time tonight because there's not much to talk about with respect to the markets. There's really not much in the way of economics this week. You got Bernanke speaking on Wednesday. There's not much in the way of earnings. I mean, they're pretty much done. There's a few, stragglers still coming in. You don't have any real catalyst to drive this thing other than seasonals and trend, and the trend is up, still up. So you have to defer to the trend, but that's all we have right now. So this is interesting. So this thing spikes up. This is the CACs. So on the CACs here, we had a nice big spike up. I have no idea why. Had volume associated with it as well. And usually when you leave the volume up there, you're going to get another shot at it. So this had retested and regened already. Yeah, this is just like our market was, consolidation, right? Just consolidation straight across, not doing anything. You got a spike up which says that you're going to probably push back up there at some point. And it was interesting because that spike up turned lower, and then you got to push back down with some decent volume. Now you're in the middle. So actually, the more I look at this and think about it, this to me looks like this is going to build out some sort of a range now off of this area. And it's already got this tighter range inside of that, so it just expanded it a little bit on both sides. Let's see what the other two in Europe look like. The DAX, so this is the German market. They got the same thing, so they all got that spike. That spike was on Thursday. What was Thursday? Thursday, that's why. ECB. So ECB, BOE, they did their reports last week. That was what the spike was for. They spiked up, they couldn't hold it, right? And now they're kind of climbing back up there. Let me see what the FTSE looks like. Yeah, weaker, and it certainly didn't get the same sort of spike. So this one came down to do a retest at 66.59. It got into it 6.0, 7.9. Yeah, I was going to work right back up in the range. So Europe doesn't look like it wants to do anything on the downside. Let's go look at Asia. Okay, so Asia, we've got selling in Taipei, Taiwan. It's underneath the big bar. Let's pull this over and look at the weeklies too. Well, this is going to get interesting. You've got two swing points in this range, right? It's coming right into them. So, a break of two swing points, it's not going to break anything here on the weekly. And, if this ever does come down, there's a lot of swing points down there all at the same price point. So I would be watching this. This actually is an interesting market to watch tonight, because if you come breaking these guys tonight, that's going to pull you back in deeper, probably into this bar, this wide price spread bar. Yeah, that doesn't look too healthy, the way that one's setting up. Let's see what else is happening in Asia. So that's the Taiwanese, which is more closely related to the chips. The Japanese market, it's coming down to test that wide price spread bar again itself. That doesn't look particularly good. Let's look at Hong Kong. So Asia showing weakness, and this is if you watch the news, all you're getting is good news out of China, and I guess good news is bad news now in China, in that they'll expect them to have to tighten. So Hong Kong got to pop up. Hong Kong's just in a big range. And Hong Kong has multiple swing point lows down here too. It's been playing with. It actually broke them all and did not push down. And I remember us talking about it because it was coming into this big bar. So on the weekly, on weekly you had a big bar support in this area because of this this particular bar here. That gave it the support as it came down. So now it's gonna range trade some more back up in this range. And unless it can get back over this bar, right, that's just building out the range for an eventual larger break one way or the other. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about what is that? That's 2 months. 2 months already. 2.5 months. That's getting out there fairly far at this point. Hong Kong, Shanghai, those are the two to watch in Asia, it looks like to me. And Taiwan potentially trying to break down. Let me look at the guys that supply China. Australia, just range trading. Brazil. Yeah, no, Brazil is definitely sold off. Back at swing point lows. Has no volume. Well, it looks like Brazil is going to get a bounce here, but I don't know how far it's going to bounce. So Australia is okay. Brazil doesn't look as great. And of course Brazil has Brazilian problems, not just commodity issues. And the Canadian market is just consolidating. So I don't see anything there. One last market in Europe, in Asia, is Korea, and Korea looks like Taiwan, selling off. So this market never did come back to retest and regen off of this high. You're breaking swing point lows. That's going to go to the bottom of support. Okay. Well, Asia is definitely more mixed. Europe's still strong. U.S. still strong, divergent. Dollar getting stronger. Bonds trading towards the bottom end of their range, which would mean that interest rates potentially could push into new high territory for the year. I'm just sitting here muddling through all of this. I think what we need to see is, again, we still need to see, we've got to, I'm going to go back now to the indexes themselves. We've got to see, let me bring up the U.S. markets one more time. What I'm going to be looking for in terms of what to give me a clue, in particular, is the NDX and NASDAQ, and that is can we break back above this area, right? This is the key area, right? If you get back above this, and that price point is 33.78. That's kind of the key area. And the Russell's the same. The Russell and the NDX themselves. If you can get back above those areas, then we're going to break out on the listed issues, and these are going to go back and test the highs. Well, they're definitely going to test these highs, but they're probably going to get all the way back up and test the tops. Those breakouts would probably, now you're starting to think about calendar. We're in the second or third week of November? Second week of November, so you really have 6 weeks left in the year. When you get this close and you're still hanging at the highs, it's almost impossible to bring the thing down. Trends up. Yes, we got divergence. We've only got about 3 weeks of real trading, and then it's going to get as slow as can be into Christmas and the New Year. So if this market's going to do any kind of a retrace, it's really got to do it probably this week. I can't see how if you break the new highs, there's no way it's coming back in. It's just going to gravitate higher. So if the market's going to break, it's going to break this week. Otherwise, it's going higher into the end of the year. That'd probably be the way I look at this thing. All right, let's see if you have any questions. Sound. Oh, well, I don't know. The sound looks like it's coming through. I assume everybody's hearing this. So I'm not sure. Hopefully you got that resolved for yourself. Let me look over here. Emails. No emails. Let me see if there's any text messages. You can catch me in multiple ways. So let's see if we got a text. And we do. Let's see what we got here. Question is, can you explain the listed issues versus the OTC? Yeah, sure. It's an old term. I don't even know where it came from. So the question is, what's the difference between OTC and listed? Listed has always historically referred to New York Stock Exchange, basically. So Dow Jones Industrials, almost all of those used to trade exclusively. I think that's still true, actually, exclusively on the New York Stock Exchange. So the NYSE. S&Ps, the majority of those also used to always be on the NYSE, so those always came up when they were called listed issues. They were listed on the exchange, right? Historically, I assume that's where the terminology came from. OTC was over the counter, and that usually referred to smaller stocks, which was typically the case outside of the NYSE, right? Remember, historically they called the NYSE the big board, right? And everything else was small, I assume, right? Because it was the big one. But of course, over the last 30 years, all that changed with all the regulations, the electronic trading, the NASDAQ becoming an electronic marketplace. And so now, it's just a historical terminology. Listed issues, OTC. OTC to me means NASDAQ, NDX, Russell. Amex Exchange, NASDAQ Exchange. Listed, New York Stock Exchange, and in particular S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrials. So that's really what that refers to. Okay, so I think that's it. I really don't have much else to say. It comes down to probably tomorrow and the next day, if they're going to pull this thing back, and if that divergence, right? Divergence means that you have things that usually move together not doing so. They're diverging. Divergence usually only lasts for a small period of time, because divergence essentially says that one group is out of sync with the other, and one of them's right and one's wrong, usually, right? They could both be wrong, I guess, but typically one side or the other is going to pull the other one back the other way. And so the question here is, are we going to pull the NDX and the NASDAQ up, or are we going to push or pull, I guess we can use that word, are we going to pull the listed exchanges down, right? Which one? The only clues we had last night was to look at like XLF starting to take off. They didn't do anything today. Matter of fact, nothing did anything today. So there's really no new clues out here. So when you have no new clues, just like I said last night, you defer to the trend. You have to defer to the trend. Maybe you play smaller, but you simply wait. There's really not much else you can do. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate you being there. Have a good night, and I will catch you next time. Take care, folks. Good night.